Welcome to Talk of the Town podcast. I'm Cameron and this is Kevin. For those of you who may not have seen us yet, please go ahead and kind of like, maybe subscribe to us. We have 2 episodes out now, and last time we kind of spoke about the quick development of Pearland, kind of went through their history. You know, we were founded in 1894, incorporated in 1959, and exploded in growth. We kind of went in a little detail last time. So if you're interested in that, please go ahead and check that out. And you might have heard we kind of talked about NASCAR and the NFL.
Right.
And today we're going to talk about more development stories here in Pearland. It's just talk about the history of it. Why did we put the town center here? How and why did 288 expand through town and things like that? So we're going to talk about a little bit of those developments today. I guess starting off with the town center. Kind of give us the bidding war, kind of so to speak, or how we got to there, and how did Pro get to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting turn of events and those types of things. And I'm going to go back to probably late 2005 timeframe. Sometime in 2005, we were approached by a group of developers called Pogan McEwen with a concept of a open air mall. It's just a whole different concept than the enclosed mall, right?
Like in Baybrook and others.
Like you see at Baybrook or, the Galleria and those types of things where they're enclosed and people walk around instead of an open air mall. And so Pogan McEwen had looked at the Beltway in 288 and where Bass Pro is today. So we actually went through the process of working with them, getting a zoning application together. We used to do things like this called a PUD or a PUD, planned unit development. Now it's just called planned development or a PD. So we went through this process with them. They were looking at bringing in Bass Pro. The story how we landed the Bass Pro real quick while we're talking about it. So the actual owner of Bass Pro, so our economic development corporation folks were actually in Las Vegas
or PEDC.
At PEDC at one of the large retail conventions. ICSC is what it's called. And they were there. The folks from Bass Pro were there. We were presenting to Bass Pro, and Bass Pro was going to make their decision on whether they were going to go there where they are now, or on 45 over in the League City area where Cabela's is now. So those two. And so one of the guys that worked for the PEDC in this conversation, the decision took all of about 15 minutes. The guy at Bass Pro, when he says he's going to do something, his lieutenants concur. And so they're having this conversation, and EDC guy pulls out of his briefcase and he says, if you're looking for hunting and fishing licenses within a certain geographical region, 20-mile, region around this site versus 20 miles over that site, there's 1 million more license holders from our site versus their site. Closed his briefcase, and the owner goes, I'm going to Pearland.
Sounds like a deal.
So story of how we landed Bass Pro where it's located. But in addition to that, so Pogan McEwen had gone down, and they were going to do things a little bit differently. They could get Bass Pro in. They really didn't have the traditional big box like the Macy's and the Dillards and all of those kind of things as a part of their deal. So they were going to bring their design plan, and their whole development plan was to bring Bass Pro, a place that Dad could come to, while Mom, kids, and everything else did the rest of the town center, right, and the rest of the development. And so we had struck a deal with them. We had a development agreement in place and all this kind of stuff, and no incentive other than what we had for Bass Pro. And so when I say incentives, it's usually a rebate of sales tax for regional, type things, roadways, water, sewer, those types of things, bringing it in there. And so we get the deal done, and within 6 months, they haven't broken ground, they haven't moved forward yet. Within 6 months, CBL, Charles B. Leibowitz and their REIT, multi-billion-dollar REIT, is moving in and wanting to talk to us about where now Town Center is. Mm-hmm. So we have competing interests. They're going to cannibalize each other. And so it became it was a concern because if both of them happened at the same time, both could struggle.
Right.
And so you didn't need that. At the same time, we need to let the market play out, right? The market's going to speak. So it's real interesting amongst people on council, amongst people with our Planning and Zoning Commission, and even our EDC board. There were competing interests because we didn't want to. So we had people who they just wanted to hook their wagon to one and others. And I kept telling people, if we sit back
and just let it
and let the market play out, we're going to end up with 1 million square feet of retail with no incentive to do so. No incentive. So we did. We did exactly that. We let them play out. And what was interesting in the midst of all of this, as a council member, you heard through the grapevine, through the consultants, like engineers, architects, and the like, from both projects, you were hearing what was going on inside. Yeah. And so what you were hearing was the big box retailers that the Pogue and McEwen guys could not get, CBL was
able to get.
So the next thing you know, in fact, Mr. Dillard himself made a visit to Pearland. We didn't know that. But the CBL folks brought Mr. Dillard himself into Houston, drove the site, and said, I want to go there, not there. Okay?
Which there, meaning the current Town Center versus the corner of Beltway and 288.
Yeah, so 518 and 288. Broadway and 288. And so the next thing you know, we've got everybody coming in, and here's where we are going. And so next thing you know, these two are competing. They're trying to figure out how, what, and where to go and do. And so we're going to now move forward. And it looks like where Town Center is now going to move forward because they've got Macy's, Dillard's,
the big box.
They've got all the inline retailers ready to go. They're not getting the big retailers over here, but Bass Pro is coming out of the ground. Okay, it's coming up and rising out of the ground. So here is some of the funny stuff that happens behind the scenes, and what you hear about when you're in the middle of all this is one, be very, very careful what you say to a media. Be very, very careful what you say to a council. On a Monday night in exec session. 2 examples. So Bass Pro is in. Now Pogue and McEwen wants to redo their plan development and their phasing instead of just, boom, it's all there. They want to do it in 2 phases. And so I remember telling council that it would be in our best interest to incentivize them to get to phase 2. In other words, put most of the incentive on phase 2, not on phase 1.
On phase 1.
Okay. And outside of Bass Pro, they needed to have more retail space than just Bass Pro in order to get the incentive on on phase 1. So they had to have, if memory serves me, it's like 132,000 square feet of retail on the ground, which is more than Bass Pro and more. And they could get access, which was about 1/3 of the total incentive, get to the rest of what would needed to be on the ground to get to the other 2/3. So long story short, they come in, they're dead in the water. They're not getting anything coming forward. And so we had an exec session where a gentleman with the last name Pogue, it was the son of Pogue and McEwen, was in. Their chief counsel wasn't able to make the trip. He sits in exec session and he said, I'm here to tell you we're not expecting anything from the city for Bass Pro. Now,
if anybody, what is he referring to?
Sales tax rebates and things like that to get them here. Typically, if you bring in a Bass Pro, which is a big regional draw, that's going to cost
It's going to cost you as a city.
As a city, I'm going to tell you about $20 million to get them in. That's what that rebate's going to usually look like. And we've paid nothing for that Bass Pro.
probably the only city that didn't pay anything.
Yeah, probably
for
the
Bass
only
Pro.
city in the nation that didn't pay anything to get a Bass Pro. So, long story short, about 2 weeks after we had that conversation with Josh Pogue coming in to say we're not expecting anything, their chief counsel comes to town, and we're sitting back in the same exact place in exec session, and he goes, "We're looking to see if possible we could get about $5 million out of the city for the Bass Pro Shop." I look across the table and I'm like,
What?
"Excuse me." I said, "Josh Pogue sat in that same chair 2 weeks ago and said, we're not expecting anything. So do you have anything else to discuss?
If not, we're done.
If not, we're done." And I am telling you, Cameron is on line if I'm dying. He turned beet red, blood red, steam coming out of his ears. They didn't talk. And we said, "Sir, one of your principals just said we're not expecting anything, and so that's what we're going to live with." And so that deal was dead. A few months later, they actually came in and said they were done. So now let's switch to Town Center.
To Town Center. Yep.
Okay, and we're rocking along. They're getting this thing done, and they were looking to get some incentives, from the city, and the city kept pushing back. I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to. And so one of the Leibowitz sons, Mark Leibowitz, was quoted in the Houston Business Journal as saying, "Regardless of what Pearland says or does, we are coming to Pearland."
Okay.
So long story short, he shows up, wants to have a meeting. We're in exec session, and he's asking for an incentive for the town center, to which we open up the Business Journal and said, "Did you say this?" His direct, he looked and he just went. And so
definition of each word.
Kind of the same thing. If you don't have anything else to discuss,
We're done here.
We're kind of done. So we ended up 1 million square feet of retail with really no incentive
And that's
on it.
and the reason why Bass Pro is sitting out there by itself for so long. Now, there's a possibility of something moving forward. Now,
Right.
Here we are 20 years later.
Right.
And that area has been kind of sitting there vacant for a while. There's also been some development that came to an absolute halt in that area, but we're finally starting to see pieces being put together around Bass Pro.
Yeah, so we actually there's a developer out of the Houston market area that has it under contract and is moving forward with a development plan, kind of a mixed-use development of some really high-end residential for sale. You'll have some high-end residential for rent, a mid-rise apartment, type things. There's some conversations about a hotel conference center there, high-end restaurants, that type of stuff, to complement what's going on with Bass Pro. Bass Pro is underperforming greatly as a store within their chain.
It needs the surrounding area. Yeah.
It needs more along with it. It's getting about 18 to 20 million in sales a year, should be at 60. And so that will probably happen if we can get the rest of this done, the development's done, and then off we go. And it's one of the last major corners in our city to develop. So we want kind of a wow factor. We want someplace. We hear all the time we want people with more restaurants, more high-end restaurants.
High-end is what we keep hearing.
And these developers have the ties to that. What drives that is density. If you don't have the proper density, you don't get those types of things. And so here's where you got to listen to the marketplace, but you also have to, and what people want, but you also have to listen to the development community and how it happens.
There's a strategic way to do it.
Yeah, there's a give and take and a balance to that makes sense. And at the end of the day, could be a great deal. At one time, there just south of Bass Pro, there was
on that side of the freeway.
On that side of the freeway, there was a development with the presidential heads, and that you see around town. And so, so that was, working its way through, and boy, it was going to be a spectacular opportunity, spectacular, draw of people coming in and learning the history about our presidents and those types of things. David Addix was the sculptor of all of those. He passed away about sometime in the last year or so. Tragic to see. I mean, he's gone and no longer with us, but those heads are still around town. And so that particular one, it just didn't happen because of market timing.
Yep.
About the time they got their zoning done with the city, we had the market crash of 2008. And so they got caught up in that, and unfortunately, the developers of that thing lost that development to their bank, and it was foreclosed on. And so they never were able to come out of the ground and get it done. It was spectacular to see it happening, and so now you've got some other development that's there with the Ivy Lofts and those types of things that are moving forward. So over time, you're going to see more. You're going to see more residential development there, and hopefully one day maybe some office development.
Right. Yeah, for those of you that are watching, if there's a certain area of town that you kind of want us to maybe dive into, maybe talk about a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll come back and do more development stories and at a later date. But we're talking about Bass Pro, we're talking about Town Center. We're talking about basically everything along the 288 corridor.
Right.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, that wasn't a high priority for a long period of time with TxDOT and the state and others. So, of course, we couldn't bring any of this development in without the expressway to get there.
Right.
So, kind of tell us and talk about how did we get 288 to where it is now in the city of Pearland? Of course, it connects from Harris County through Brazoria County and farther south.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the port.
Yep.
And it goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf of America. Excuse me, Gulf of America. And so how, what, and where? So we had kind of the main lanes and sitting out there, but how did we get the toll lanes? So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is nothing about the toll lanes or wanting to go and do and bring the tolls, but just bring the facilities so we can facilitate more traffic. So in the late 2000s, 8, 9, 10, right there in that ballpark, there was more and more talk about it. So 288 was actually exempted and was allowed to be a toll by a law that was passed in, I want to say 6 or 2007, somewhere in that time frame, by the state legislature. So it was a Senate bill and it was exempted. So as a result, it could develop as a toll project. Obviously, the city of Pearland, that's TxDOT right of way. Right. It's not going to be our deal. So in that law, when it was passed, local jurisdictions, the counties and their toll entities could take leadership of that toll facility or that project. It's called primacy. And so Brazoria County and Harris County both, took primacy. Back during that period, TxDOT was really under scrutiny around the state for some things. And so every entity around the state took primacy over TxDOT. Mm-hmm. Brazoria County, Harris County, no different. And so as we're watching and looking at this, it was a high priority from Harris County. In fact, it was number 2 on their list behind 290. But then all of a sudden we looked up, and in 2009 and early 2010, it was dropping like a rock in water. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally on their priority. Mm-hmm. Brazoria County portion's not going to be built if it doesn't connect to something and go on into Houston. Right. So you got to work these two together. So long story short, I came off council in 2010. Me and council member Woody Owens created an organization called the 288 Partnership, the Greater 288 Partnership. And we came together and created that partnership as a regional advocacy group for one reason only, and that is to push to get more dollars into and infrastructure built to create 288. Not only north into Houston, but then south into Brazoria County. Brazoria County Commissioners Court, county judges, and the like, very, very in favor of this project. They needed to make sure that it happened. We were the squeaky wheel, if you will, go out there and squeak as much as we could to make it happen. And quick story about how it moved forward and when it moved forward. The issue was primacy in Harris County. So we would visit with Ned Holmes. So Ned Holmes is has been around the political world for decades in the city of Houston and Harris County. He sat on the TxDOT Commission, the Highway Commission. He was one of the commissioners. So me and Woody visited with Ned often, and he kept saying the answer is in 1492. It's in 1492. That's the law that allowed primacy. The real issue was we needed to get primacy in Harris County over to TxDOT, not with Harris County, so they could spend the money and go forth and do that project. We knew what the issue was, and so we devised a plan. It was our L. Franco Lee plan. He was the commissioner in Harris County where this project went through, and he didn't see it as a benefit to his precinct like we saw it in Brazoria County. So we needed to get him over to release it and get it into TxDOT's hands. So I remember exactly where we were sitting. So Woody and I were in Austin. We were going to have at the commission meeting the next day, and he and I were having dinner with Ned Holmes and Ed Underwood from the city of Lubbock. He was over in Lubbock as a TxDOT commissioner. And back in those days, we called it the Ned, Ed, and Ted show because 3 of the 5 were Ned, Ed, and Ted, okay? And so it was a funny laugh there, but we're sitting at the Roaring Fork in Austin, Texas, 3 streets down from the Capitol. We're having dinner. We're talking this back up. And Ned goes, the answer's in 1492. And I said, Ned, we know it's in 1492. And so our L. Franco Lee plan, we found out that Ned had a relationship that went with L. Franco Lee back 40 years, personal relationship. And I remember sitting across the table from Ned Holmes and saying, Ned, the issue is in primacy. We're an advocacy group. We don't have any money to go and do this. The counties and TxDOT are going to have to figure it out. So I am asking you as a friend of transportation, as a friend of the 288 partnership and wanting to see this succeed, and a 40-year friend to L. Franco Lee, I'm asking you, TxDOT, to go and ask Harris County for primacy. And by the time I got finished with that question and that request, he was grinning from ear to ear. He had been waiting from somebody local,
wanting someone to ask,
to simply ask the question. And literally within months, with just a handful of months from that time, he negotiated the primacy back from Harris County to TxDOT, and the rest of that project was history.
I mean, it goes to show that relationships matter.
Relationships are key to all of this.
You and I talk about this all the time,
right?
Whether it's politics or not, that relationships matter. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. It matters that, well, if you're able to send someone like that.
Well, and keep in mind, Ned Holmes was a long-standing, long-term Republican. L. Franco Lee was a long-standing, long-term Democrat.
Right.
And they had a 40-year history together that they could talk. Now, it's interesting. I was at a TxDOT forum after he had just negotiated this back, and I saw him, and he come over to me, and he goes, I think we've got a deal done. And I asked him, I said, what did it cost you?
What it cost? Yeah.
To talk to El Franco. What did it cost you? And he goes, oh, it hurt. It hurt big time. And so today, if you're driving this corridor, let me tell you what it cost him. So in Pearland, at the time, Cullen was only widened up just past where McCart is, into the creek. So it was going to take Cullen all the way into Houston, had to be widened. 521 on the west end of our community over there is being widened right now, and you see some of the infrastructure that's over by Shadow Creek. It takes that, so that's still in process. When you go up into Houston and you see the big flyover into the Med Center coming off of the toll facility, that was a condition that TxDOT had to build that. And then right now there's a road that diverts off of 610 and Cambridge, comes off of 610 and down into Cambridge, taking traffic into the Med Center. That was the fourth. Those were the 4 projects that TxDOT had to take on in order to get primacy back.
So the greater 288 partnership kind of turned into a little bit more.
Turned into a very strong regional voice for transportation. Correct.
Okay. Well, and like I said, you can't have that without having, can't have anything else. Can't have the big box stores without having
Right.
transportation to get there.
Right.
So,
And so real quick, just as an educational point, so
Excuse
the 288 toll facility, ends around County Road 58 in Brazoria County. And so Brazoria County is in final design right now from taking it from County Road 58 all the way down south of Highway 6 to about County Road 56, which is, I think it's Meridiana Parkway. So somewhere in that area, they'll be taking that up. So that should be under construction, moving south in about a year from now.
27.
Yeah, into 27, early 28, somewhere in that ballpark. You should see that under construction and taking that further. And then they'll have another leg from there all the way down to where the Grand Parkway will be coming through at County Road 60, which is about a mile and a half north of FM 1462 down there. And so you'll see all of that in the coming decade as that will move forward. But it goes back to having relationships, understand where the landmines are when you're trying to do all those kind of things, and how to negotiate and avoid the landmines. El Franco Lee was a landmine, and we had to avoid it, and instead we had to get it out of his hands and into TxDOT's hands. And once we figured that out, the request was easy.
I was about to say, what the conditions makes the med center a little bit easier to get in and out of.
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit. I mean,
Yep.
traffic is traffic.
Right.
And, of course, Cullen being widened all the way up into Houston, too. So, I mean, overall, it helps the region and what was done and taken care of.
And helps our folks in Brazoria County and our commuters from Pearland and northern Brazoria County up into Houston.
Right. Real quick before we end today, we've been talking about the 288 corridor. We talked about Bass Pro, everything behind Bass Pro. Wasn't there a possibility at one point we could have gotten or received a concert venue?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We were in competition for an outdoor amphitheater.
Much like the Woodlands, I'm assuming?
Very similar to the Woodlands, but with, the Woodlands is 30 years old or older now. And so, but a much upgrade from that. And they made the decision to go over into the Flyway area in Webster and the I-45 corridor as opposed to ours.
That would have been cool, though. Concert venue right here.
But we could have had a concert venue next to the Bass Pro and everything else. I think it really would have made that site come alive and had some pretty cool features. And it would have been in our backyard as opposed to having to go over there. But, having said that, we have some great opportunities right there at the Beltway and 288.
So in the last two episodes, we talked about the opportunity of having a concert venue, the NFL stadium, which would have brought the Rockets in, and a NASCAR track. It's kind of
some incredible history of being where we are.
Think of.
Well, Jim Rome always says Pearland is the center of the universe.
That's true. He wasn't necessarily talking about any of that, and that when he discussed that, for anyone who knows what we're talking about with Jim Rome, just
Google it.
Just Google Jim Rome Pearland, and you'll get the full story. But no, so let's talk about a little kind of what we're going to talk about next week a little bit. We're going to talk about high density development. We're going to get into the weeds of apartments and townhomes and high density residential and the zoning that comes along with it. Right. We'll even talk about the kind of the legislature and what they did last session, and all that. So just a little quick.
At the end of the day, affordability is a big topic, not only in Pearland, Brazoria County, and Texas, but across our nation. Home ownership is becoming out of reach for some young couples, and it's just difficult because of the cost to get there. So one of the things is just how do we bring affordability to the marketplace? At the same time, we have tracts of land that have its opportunity in the court of public opinion in front of a zoning case to have its opportunity to be heard and seen and council to weigh in on what we want. And so we need to be talking about that in light of that. What is property rights, private property rights versus the community rights? How do that mesh, and how do they compete and fight? I mean, it's legitimate, it's real, It's emotional, right? Because we're dealing with people's money, we're dealing with people's livelihoods. In the case of an acreage and tracts of land, it may be dealing with a tract of land that's been in a family's ownership for decades, and that's a livelihood. And so, how does all this compete and work? It's not easy.
You have to throw the market in there as well, and so
it's not cut and dried.
No,
so
it's not easy to navigate. So we'll be talking about that next week. So tune in as we talk about the different apartments, townhomes. Are they needed? Why are people so resistant to them? Kind of what you're talking about, property rights, and then we'll talk it. Like I said, we'll get into the legislation. So tune back next week where we're going to talk about more local leaders, local stories, and local impact.
That's it.
So that wraps it up for this time on the Talk of the Town podcast.